everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Melissa, and today we are going to make a V-neck jumper using this fantastic sparkly wool blend yarn. Absolutely love this stuff. It has a beautiful drape, and I love how this jumper turns out using this yarn. So it comes in a multitude of colors. There's even more colors than this, but this is what I've got left, and I'm having a difficult time wondering which one to use for this tutorial. I am tossing up between these two and trying to work out which one is going to be easiest to see, and I think maybe this one. The yarn's a little dark, so hopefully you can see what I am doing, but this is called Snow. It's by a lady called Annette Erickson. I got it at Spotlight. It is 100-gram yarn, and this one is called Turquoise, and it is 230 meters. We will be using a 6mm hook, even though it says there a 7 hook. I found that was too gappy, but check your tension and see what works the best for you. We are working this jumper long ways. You will need 6 balls for a medium or a large, and 5 to 6 depending on your tension and how long you require for a small. As I said, we are working long ways, and so what do we need to make this jumper? You will need your 6mm hook, or whatever hook you require for this tension. Now you can make this jumper using any yarn you like. It can be a thick heavy jumper if you like. It can be a thin lightweight jumper. It's purely up to you. The measurements will stay the same for the different sizes, so we'll have small, medium and large, but always work it up and trial it out on yourself. So as you go along, I will suggest places where you will trial this for the sizing on yourself to see that it is the size that works for you. This is completely adjustable jumper for whatever you require for you. So I'm going to be using a 6mm hook, but I always do my chain in a larger size because I find that it makes it more even. So I'm using my 7mm hook to do the starting chain. I will also need my tape measure, some scissors, I will need my yarn needle, and some stitch markers. Alright, well, let's get this project started. If you enjoy my content and want to support my channel, you can buy me a coffee at the link in the description below. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. Now, start your yarn however you start your yarn. And we are aiming to be 148 stitches. Sorry, 148 centimeters, which is roughly about 160 stitches depending on your tension. So do your chain and then measure it to see. So what I do is make my chain, fold it in half, and then measure it to see if it's 74 centimeters, which is half of 148. So I also double check that it is the length that I like by putting the chain over my shoulder, and then I see where it sits on me, and if I'm happy with that length, that's great. Otherwise, adjust it to the length you like. So this is fully adjustable. Like I said earlier, you can make this as short as you want or as long as you want. Just adjust the chain, put it over your shoulder and see where it sits, and if you are happy with that. So I'm going to do 160 stitches in my chain, and then when you have done that, come back here and I will show you what to do next. Alright, we have done our very long chain, and now we need to change the hook to our smaller hook. So I've got my 6mm hook. So obviously make sure your hook size goes with the yarn that you are using and your tension requirements. Chain 1 Then what you're doing is working your stitches on the underside. So the front, you will see you've got this V here, that's the front, and the back you will see you have the loops on the back. Now make sure you're working this in the loops. The reason why, the front will stay as those V's and gives a really nice finish, and you'll see what I mean when we come to certain bits of this project. And also it'll make it a lot easier to sew and have a nicer finish if you have the V's there. So once again you'll see what I mean when we get to that point. So make sure your V, you're not working your stitches in your V, turn it upside down, and we're working the stitches into that loop in the back there. All right, so miss that first stitch that you did, and we're doing half double crochet. So yarn over, missing that, see that first stitch there, we're missing that, and we're going to the next stitch and we're going into that loop there. Grab your yarn, pull it through, and grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. Yarn over, going into that next lump there, go straight into there, grab your yarn, pull it through, and grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. And keep repeating this. So yarn over, into that lump, grab your yarn, pull it through, grab your yarn, pull through all the loops on the hook. So keep doing your half double crochets all the way along your chain, and then when you finish your chain, just make sure that you've got the amount of stitches that you started with. So for me will be 160, and I'm going to meet you at the end of this chain. I'm nearly at the end. I just got these 2 more stitches to do. So you half double crochet all the way to the very end. Alright, now double check that you've got the right amount of stitches. For me it was 160, so I've got my 160 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work, and you're simply repeating the half double crochets into every stitch. Make sure you do it into the very first stitch as well, and just continue going all the way down. And you just keep repeating this row after row after row. Now I am doing a medium, so it is 24 centimeters wide that I would like to do this for. The other sizes, the small and the large, I will put them up here. Small is 21 centimeters, medium is 24, and large is 27 centimeters wide, this section here. And then when you get it to the width that you would like, I will come back and show you what to do next. I will also tell you how many rows I did to make that 24 centimeters wide. It is different for everybody. Your tension and the yarn that you use will change that up. So just make sure you're getting your measuring tape out and you are measuring your panel. And yeah, we'll go from there when you get to the width that you require. Now if you need something different, obviously hold this up to the person that you are making it for and see how it looks on them. So you want to go from the edge, so from under the arm along to the middle of the chest, so in between the breast area out to the underarm. Alright, so once you have done that, I will meet you back here and show you what to do next. I have finished my 24 centimeter wide first half of my jumper, and now what we need to do is to count half the amount of stitches that you have created. So for me it was 160 stitches, so half of that is 80 stitches. So I need to count up 80 stitches and put a stitch marker on the 80th stitch. Okay, so I have counted my 80 stitches and I've put my stitch marker on the 80th stitch. Now I need to count the next 30 stitches and then put a stitch marker on my 30th stitch. Now you can see that I have placed a stitch marker on the 30th stitch, and that's on my 80th stitch. And what we're doing is creating the neck opening. So we are now going to work normal half double crochet up to and including this stitch marker. So all you need to do is literally just continue on. So chain 1, turn your work, and then keep doing your half double crochets. So it should be 80 stitches up to and including the stitch marker. Double check that you have stitched your 80 stitches, and I will meet you back here when you have done that. We have worked up to and including the stitch marker, so that is 80 stitches that we have half double crocheted now. And now what we're going to do is chain 30 stitches corresponding to the 30 stitches that we missed there. So just chain, loosely chain 30 stitches. 30. And now what we're going to do is join this to the body of work. So yarn over and bead tight, and I put my thumb on the stitch and the yarn over to hold it in place. So this stitch marker was my 30th stitch, so I'm going to go into the stitch after the stitch marker. And then I'm going to grab my yarn and pull it through. Then I pull it tight and I put my thumb on it again, but I change it over, grab my yarn and pull through all the stitches on the hook. That's so I can get a nice tight stitch there. I'm just going to half double crochet just a few stitches, and then I'm going to go and try this on and see how it looks in the mirror. Now if you find that this is not a big enough hole, then undo your stitches and do less. If you find that it's not so if you want it smaller, if you want it longer, then do more chains, but make sure either way you adjust your amount of stitches on the body of work to be the amount of stitches in this gap here. So I will go and check that this is okay for me and get back to you. I am happy with that size, so I am now going to continue on to the end of the row. So when you have worked out if that is good for you or you want to adjust, then once you've done all that, continue doing your half double crochets to finish off the row, and I will meet you back here when you have done that. I am coming to the end of this row, and I am going to now chain 1, turn your work, and this then becomes row 1 of the second half of the top, the body of the top of the jumper. So I did 28 rows for this first half. So now I need to do 28 rows for this second half. Now I put a stitch marker here just to show me that it is the first row, but you can also count from the chain. So you can count up from the chain or you can count up from where you've marked your first row. Work your stitches up to the chain, and when you get here I will show you what we do next. Okay, so we are up to the chain now, and we are going to be working into the chain exactly the same way as you started off the project on your first ever row. Now you need to work in the back of the stitches. do not work in the V. The reason why is because we're not doing any trimming or anything on this. This is the finished product. So you can see you've got the nice V's there, and we want exactly the same on the other side. So you want the V's, not the lumps. We're working these stitches in the lumps. So the same as what you did before, yarn over, and you're going to go straight into that lump on the back of each stitch. There's the next one. Now the first two can be a little tricky, but once you've got them, do persist. Do not tempt yourself with going into the front. You're just not going to have the nice clean look if you do that. So make sure you're doing all your stitches in the back in that lump. Alright, I'm going to leave you to do that, and I'll meet you back here when you have finished that. Just coming up to the last stitch. And then just continue doing your half double crochets all the way to the end. And that is your first row complete. And now you are going to repeat the same amount of rows that you did for the first half of this body of the jumper for this second half. So I did 28 rows. This is number 1 of the second half, so I need to do 27 more rows, and then I have finished the body of the jumper. So you do the remaining amount of rows that you need to do, and I will meet you back here to show you what to do next, which will be sewing up the sides and doing the arms. Okay, at the end of that row, which is your last row, row 28, on the second half of your front of your body, leave a tail long enough to sew up the edge. So I fold my jumper in half, and then I pull my yarn straight along the edge. Sorry, there's not enough room here. And then a little bit extra, grab my scissors and snip that off, and that is what we're going to sew up the side with. Just grab your yarn and pull it through, and there we go. Now let's sew up the edge. We have now finished the second half of our body of our jumper. So you can see there's the neck hole, there's side number 1 and side number 2. It's so big that it's hard for me to show you the whole thing, but the next thing we need to do is sew up the side. So fold your jumper in half, so fold the body in half, so you've got the neckline, there we go, there's the neck. This stitch marker is to tell me that this is the inside of the cardigan. So just any side is fine. At this moment in time, they both look identical. So I just pick a side, I put my stitch marker there, and then I know that that is now my inside, and all my seams are going to be on the inside. Turn your jumper to the side and line up the edge. Now it is quite hard for me to show you, as there is simply not enough room. Hopefully you can see that better, and there we go, that's the opening to the bottom of your jumper. And then we go along, and there is the shoulder of your jumper, and there is the neck and the other side. So we're going to concentrate on this side, and we are going to get your yarn needle and that long tail that you left, and we are going to sew up the side. Now that I have my edges lined up and I know I'm on the inside of my cardigan, at this point in time it doesn't matter, but when you come to doing your second side, you will need to know that you are actually on the right side or the wrong side, the inside of your jumper. So there's No specific way to do this, but I find that the way I do it leaves a nice, neat, flat edge. But you can sew this up however you like to sew up your jumpers or any of your garments. So I just put the needle into the bottom of my edge because we're not going to be doing anything with the edge here. That is it. That's the bottom of your jumper. That's how we're going to leave it. So we want to make sure that this edge here is a nice sew. Now, I am not the world's best sewer. I really suck at sewing. So I try my best to keep it neat. So I put it through and then I just do it again. And then I just double check that it looks neat and flat and lined up. So that's what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for, it's going to be on the side anyway, but I'm trying to aim that the edge here is flat and not very noticeable. Okay, so now what I do is I am trying to get the inside. So I've done this one already. I'm trying to get the inside of this side, the inside of the stitch on the edge there, and the inside of the stitch on the edge here. And then pull the yarn through. Same again. And I keep doing inside of one and the inside of the other side. And the reason I do it like this is I find it leaves a nice, flat, neat edge. And also when you look at the outside, I find that that's not as noticeable as if you, and leaving it flat is nice because if you sewed through the bottom here, it would leave, I mean, you could crochet it as well, which also takes up a lot more yarn, but it leaves this bulky, very distinct edge. I find that for me. But if that's the way you want to do it, please go ahead and do it. This is just the way that I do it. You don't have to copy me. I am not the best sewer, as I said, but I just like doing it this way because it leaves a nice edge. So work your way up until you have 42 stitches left. Now I find that 42 stitches for this jumper using my 6mm hook actually leaves a really nice amount of space for the sleeve. So that's my armhole. You can change this to be as many or as least amount of stitches as you like. What I would recommend is make the hole, try it on, see how it goes. If you need to adjust, then adjust. Whatever you end up doing, write it down somewhere how many stitches you did for your armhole because you need to repeat this for your other sleeve. Now for me, it's going to be 42 stitches. So I'm going to keep working along here until I've got to my 42 stitches, and then I will show you what we do next. I've sewn up the side. You can see the nice, neat, flat edge there. And I have 42 stitches left. Now when I count my 42, I'm counting the last one I sewed in as well because I'm going to put a stitch in there. If I don't, I get left with a big hole. So that's my 42 stitches armhole. Now if you find that that armhole is too big, too small, adjust by taking out or adding more stitches. I would also advise just leaving this and not finishing off for now, just in case you might need it later on when you're sewing up, or you might need to adjust a sleeve or something like that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is turn our jumper inside out, or the correct way. Okay, so now the jumper is the right way around, and you can see that nice seam there, and it just looks like it's continuing on, and that's why I do it the way that I do it. But as I said, I'm not the world's best sewer, so do it the way that you feel you're happy with. Now we are going to be doing our sleeve. Okay, we're going to be starting down the bottom underneath the armpit. So where we finished sewing up, that's where we're going to start our sleeve. So get the end of your yarn. You don't need a particularly long tail. And we're going into that first stitch there that we finished off our sewing. So just put your hook in. Make sure you catch both sides of the stitch. Grab your yarn. Start your yarn however you start your yarn. And then just start like that. Okay, and then we're going to put a half double crochet in every stitch. And work your way around the opening of your sleeve. And when you get a little way up, I suggest that you put a stitch marker in here, and that will show you that that was your first row of the sleeve. Otherwise, you're going to lose it because it blends in so well with the rest of your jumper. So work your way around, and when you get towards the end, I will meet you back here and show you what we do next. Coming to the last stitch. Now it can look a little bit tricky. I'm trying to get there we go. And then at that point, you see that you're back to the beginning, your beginning stitches here. Have a count of how many stitches you got. Make sure you got 42 or the amount of stitches that you require. Whatever the amount of stitches is, write it down somewhere so you know you can remember what amount of stitches you're doing for your other sleeve. Trust me, it's easy to forget. And then once you've done all that, we need to close that gap. Okay, so what we're going to do is on our first stitch, right into the top of our first stitch, we're just doing a slip stitch. So put your hook in, grab a yarn, pull it through that stitch there and pull it through the loop on your hook. Pull it tight, chain one, and then turn your work. Now we're going backwards and forwards. We're not going in the round. Now the reason why we don't go in the round is we'll change the pattern. So it'll make all your rows the same, whereas as you can see, you've got a clear up and dip, up and dip. So each row is different, and that's what you want to keep the same. So turn your work, and then missing that first stitch there, you can see the first hole near that chain, miss that and go into your second one here. So do your half double crochets and count as you're going, just to make sure that you've still got your 42 stitches. And then when you've done this row number 2 of your sleeve, I will meet you back here and show you what we do next. At the end of row 2 on the sleeve, we're going to join the 2 sides together. So that was my last stitch. This is my first stitch. I'm going into my first stitch, grabbing the yarn, pulling through, just doing a slip stitch and pulling through the loop on the hook. Chain 1 and turn your work again and do 2 more rows like that. So you should have a total of 4 rows. So this is 1, this is 2, and then we're going to do 2 more rows to have a total of 4 rows. I'll meet you back here when you have done 4 rows. I am now at the end of my 4th row, so I'm going to slip stitch my row together, chain 1, turn my work, and you can see that it's easy to tell you've done 4 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on this 5th row and every 5th row, we will be decreasing. So how do we do that? Well, we are going to miss that first stitch like we have always been doing. So when you do your chain, you miss that first stitch, and we're going to go into this next stitch. So yarn over, go into that next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then go into the next stitch along, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. And that's how we do a decrease. So again, at the start of every 5th row, we're missing that first stitch like we've always done. Yarn over, go into the 2nd stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then go into the 3rd stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. And then continue doing all your stitches as normal. And by the time you finish this row of this sleeve, you should have 1 stitch left. So for me, I should have 41 stitches. When I get a little way in, I grab a stitch marker and I put that in, and that tells me that that was my 5th row. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's a lot of 5 that I've done. All right, so when we finish this row here, I'll show you what we do next. We've come to the end of that decrease row, and I've counted to check that I've got my 41 stitches, which is 1 less than what I started with, which is exactly right. So now I'm going to join the row together like normal, doing my slip stitch, chain 1, turn your work, and now we're just going to do 4 rows without a decrease. So like we have been doing, miss that first stitch there, and then just half double crochet around. Join your row together with a slip stitch, chain 1, turn your work, and repeat. So do that 4 more times, and then stop there, come back to the video, and I will show you once again to do a decrease on that 5th row, just to go through it with you one more time before I leave you to finish off your sleeve. I have come to the end of my 4th row of my 2nd lot of 5. So that's my first lot of 5. My 2nd lot of 5, I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I'm on my 5th row. So this is now a decrease row. So join your 4th row together like you have been with a slip stitch, chain 1, and then turn your work. All right, so as we were doing before, miss that stitch and then yarn over. We're decreasing, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. All right, again. So once again, we're missing that first stitch, going into the 2nd stitch. So yarn over, going into that stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, going into the 3rd stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook, and there's your decrease. So we are going to continue on with our half double crochets, and with that decrease, that should bring me to 40 stitches. I've come to the end of that decrease round, and I'm going to slip stitch the row together, chain 1, turn my work, and I am going to just grab a stitch marker and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and put that in the 5th row. Okay, so you can see now that I've got 2 lots of 5 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was my decrease row, so I put a stitch marker in it. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my decrease row, and I've put a stitch marker in it. Now we have to do this a total of 8 times. So 8 groups of 5, 8 times we are decreasing. So just to run you through quickly what we're doing now, you'll be doing 4 more rows of no decrease, and then your 5th row will be a decrease, and that will bring you to the 39 stitches. And then 4 more rows, then a 5th row decrease, 4 more rows, 5th row decrease, and repeat that until you have 8 sections of 5 rows of decrease. When you have finished that, then you need to repeat the whole thing for your other side of your jumper. So sew up your side and then do your same thing that you've done with this sleeve for the second sleeve. I'm going to leave you to do that, and I'm going to come back here with both of my sleeves done, and then it should be the finished product. The sleeve is now done, and you can see that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all 5 rows apart, and you can see that slight decrease in the arm there. So when you have finished your second arm, what I do is I always, bear with me, line my arms up together. You can see there's my second arm, and just to make sure, and you can see there's the join underneath both, that they're exactly the same length. Just in case, I do count the rows. I do make sure I've got 8, but you never know. So I line them up to make sure. All right, so that is now our jumper complete. And there we go. Our jumper is finished. And I love the drape of this yarn. It is so lovely. And also, I don't know whether you can tell in the video there, but the sparkle is really pretty as well. And it's a lot darker than what you can see in there, but it's really, really pretty, and I'm very happy with it. And I hope you enjoy making this jumper as well. It is super simple, but you can make it as complicated as you like with whatever stitch you want. And it's super adjustable. So just adjust the length to what you want, smaller, longer, width, wider, narrower. And you can do the same with the sleeves. If you don't need it that long, just do it shorter. If you don't need it that wide, do it narrower, and vice versa. It's purely adjustable. So everybody, I hope you have enjoyed making your V-neck jumper, and like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Share me with all your friends, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye everybody.